Imagine a military unit so extraordinary that in over 4 years of the most brutal warfare in human history, they never once tasted defeat. Not a single battle lost, not a single mission failed, not a single retreat ordered. While millions of soldiers fought and died across the theaters of World War II, there existed a group of warriors so elite, so perfectly trained, and so tactically superior that they achieved what military historians once thought impossible: a perfect combat record. This wasn't a small special forces team conducting brief raids, but a full combat unit that fought in major campaigns across multiple fronts, facing the best that enemy forces could throw at them. Yet today, their story remains largely unknown, buried beneath the more famous tales of D-Day, Stalingrad, and the Pacific campaigns. These were the forgotten heroes of World War II, and their incredible story of tactical brilliance, unwavering courage, and unprecedented success is about to unfold before you. Prepare to discover how a single unit defied every odd, broke every rule of warfare, and achieved the impossible. They never lost a battle. Their legacy would reshape not only military tactics, but also the very definition of what it means to be an American hero. This is a story of triumph against prejudice, of loyalty in the face of betrayal, and of courage that knew no bounds. To understand the magnitude of this achievement, we must first grasp the brutal reality of World War II combat. This was a conflict where entire armies were destroyed in single campaigns, where elite divisions were wiped out in days, and where even the most experienced units suffered devastating casualties. The average life expectancy of a soldier in active combat was measured in weeks, not months. Elite units like the German Waffen-SS, the British Commandos, and the American Rangers all suffered significant defeats and heavy losses despite their superior training and equipment. In this context of universal suffering and frequent defeat, the existence of a unit with a perfect combat record seems almost mythical. Yet the 402nd Regimental Combat Team, composed entirely of Japanese-American soldiers, achieved exactly this impossible feat. Formed in 1943 from volunteers who had been imprisoned in American internment camps simply because of their ancestry, these men faced a double burden. They had to prove their loyalty to a country that had branded them as potential enemies, while simultaneously fighting against some of the most experienced and well-equipped military forces in the world. The irony was staggering. Young men whose families were imprisoned behind barbed wire in American concentration camps were volunteering to die for the very country that had stripped them of their basic rights and freedoms. The formation of the 422nd was itself a controversial decision that nearly didn't happen. In the aftermath of Pearl Harbor, anti-Japanese sentiment in America had reached fever pitch, and Japanese Americans found themselves viewed with suspicion and hatred, regardless of their actual loyalty or citizenship status. Over 120,000 people of Japanese ancestry were forcibly relocated to internment camps, losing their homes, businesses, and basic civil rights in the process. When the military initially began recruiting Japanese Americans, the response was mixed. Many were understandably bitter about their treatment and questioned why they should fight for a country that had imprisoned their families. However, thousands of young Japanese American men saw military service as their chance to prove their patriotism and earn the respect and acceptance that had been denied to them. The volunteers who formed the 422nd came primarily from two sources: the internment camps themselves, where young men volunteered despite their families' imprisonment, and Hawaii, where the Japanese-American community had not faced the same level of persecution as their mainland counterparts. These volunteers understood that they would be fighting not just against enemy forces, but against the prejudice and suspicion of their own countrymen. They knew that any failure, any sign of disloyalty, any battlefield defeat would be used as evidence The Japanese Americans could never be trusted as true Americans. Every mission would be scrutinized, every action judged not just on its military merit, but as a reflection of their entire community's worthiness. The training regimen that forged these volunteers into an elite fighting force was unlike anything the American military had ever implemented. Recognizing that the 402nd would face scrutiny that no other unit would encounter, military leaders designed a training program that was deliberately more rigorous and demanding than standard infantry preparation. The men of the 402nd trained longer, harder, and under more challenging conditions than their peers in other units. They were pushed to physical and mental limits that would have broken lesser men, but rather than complaining, they embraced the challenge. The unit's motto, "Go for broke," reflected their all-or-nothing mentality. They understood that half measures would not be sufficient to overcome the prejudice they faced. During training, they developed an extraordinary level of unit cohesion and mutual trust that would prove crucial in combat. Unlike many military units where soldiers came from diverse backgrounds and had to learn to work together, the men of the 402nd shared a common experience of discrimination and a common goal of proving their worth. This shared purpose created bonds that went beyond typical military camaraderie. They weren't just fighting for their country. They were fighting for their family's honor, for their community's future, and for the right to be accepted as true Americans. The intensity of their training and the strength of their motivation produced a unit that was not just well prepared for combat, but psychologically unbreakable. When the 402nd finally deployed to Europe in 1944, they immediately faced the ultimate test of their training and determination. Their first major engagement came in Italy, where they were assigned to break through heavily fortified German positions that had stalled Allied advances for months. The German defenders were experienced veterans who had successfully repelled numerous previous attacks, and they were positioned in mountainous terrain that heavily favored defensive operations. Military analysts predicted that the 442nd, despite their intensive training, would suffer the same fate as other units that had attempted to break through these positions. Instead, the Japanese-American soldiers achieved what others had deemed impossible. Using innovative tactics that combined traditional military doctrine with creative problem-solving, they systematically dismantled German defensive positions that had been considered impregnable. Their success wasn't just due to courage or determination, though they possessed both in abundance. The 402nd had developed a unique approach to combat that emphasized flexibility, initiative, and mutual support. Unlike many units that relied heavily on rigid command structures and predetermined battle plans, the soldiers of the 402nd were trained to think independently and adapt quickly to changing battlefield conditions. This tactical flexibility, combined with their extraordinary motivation and unit cohesion, made them nearly unstoppable in combat. The 402nd's most famous victory came during the rescue of the Lost Battalion, a mission that would cement their reputation as one of the most elite fighting forces in American military history. In October 1944, a battalion of Texas National Guard soldiers had become surrounded by German forces in the Vosges Mountains of France. Previous rescue attempts had failed with heavy casualties, and the surrounded Americans were running out of food, ammunition, and medical supplies. The 442nd was ordered to break through German lines and rescue the trapped soldiers, a mission that military commanders privately believed was likely to fail. The German positions were heavily fortified, the terrain was extremely difficult, and the enemy had had time to prepare extensive defensive positions. What followed was 5 days of the most intense combat that the 442nd had yet experienced. Fighting through dense forests, up steep mountainsides, and against determined German resistance, the Japanese-American soldiers advanced steadily toward their trapped comrades. The cost was enormous. The 442nd suffered over 800 casualties in the rescue operation, more than the 211 men they ultimately saved. But they succeeded where others had failed, breaking through German lines and reaching the lost battalion before it was too late. The rescue operation demonstrated not just the tactical skill of the 442nd, but their unwavering commitment to their fellow soldiers, regardless of the personal cost. The tactical innovations developed by the 442nd during their European campaigns influenced American military doctrine for decades after the war. Their approach to small unit tactics, emphasizing individual initiative within a framework of mutual support, became a model for special operations forces. They pioneered techniques for fighting in difficult terrain that were later adopted by mountain warfare specialists. Their methods for maintaining unit cohesion under extreme stress became standard training for elite military units. But perhaps most importantly, they demonstrated that motivation and unit cohesion could overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Military analysts who studied the 442nd's combat record identified several key factors that contributed to their unprecedented success. First was their extraordinary level of physical fitness and tactical training, which exceeded that of most other infantry units. Second was their innovative approach to battlefield tactics, which emphasized flexibility and adaptation over rigid adherence to doctrine. Third was their exceptional unit cohesion, forged through shared experience and common purpose. Finally, and perhaps most crucially, was their psychological motivation. They weren't just fighting to win battles, they were fighting to prove their worth as Americans and to honor their families and communities. The statistical record of the 422nd Regimental Combat Team reads like something from military fiction rather than historical fact. In less than 2 years of combat, they earned over 18,000 individual decorations, including 21 Medals of Honor, 52 Distinguished Service Crosses, 560 Silver Stars, and over 4,000 Purple Hearts. They suffered a casualty rate of over 300%, meaning that the unit had to be completely replaced more than 3 times during the war. Yet despite these horrific losses, they never failed to achieve their objectives, never retreated from a position, and never lost a battle. Their combat effectiveness was so extraordinary that German intelligence officers initially refused to believe that a single regiment could be responsible for the tactical victories being attributed to the 442nd. Enemy commanders who faced them in battle consistently reported that the Japanese-American soldiers fought with a ferocity and determination that exceeded anything they had encountered from other Allied forces. The 442nd became the most decorated unit in American military history, a record that stands to this day. Their success came at an enormous personal cost, but they achieved their ultimate goal. They proved beyond any doubt that Japanese Americans were loyal, courageous, and capable soldiers who deserved the full rights and respect of American citizenship. Each medal represented not just individual heroism, but a collective victory against prejudice and discrimination. The post-war impact of the 422nd service extended far beyond military history into the broader struggle for civil rights in America. Their perfect combat record became powerful evidence against the racist assumptions that had led to Japanese-American internment in the first place. It became impossible to argue that people of Japanese ancestry were inherently disloyal or untrustworthy when their sons had died in disproportionate numbers defending American values and freedoms. The 422nd service played a crucial role in the eventual decision to release Japanese Americans from internment camps and restore their civil rights. Their sacrifices helped pave the way for the Civil Rights Act and other legislation that expanded equality and justice in American society. The unit's legacy also influenced military policy, demonstrating that diverse units could achieve extraordinary success when properly trained and motivated. The lessons learned from the 442nd's experience contributed to the eventual integration of the American military and the development of modern approaches to diversity and inclusion in military service. Their story became a powerful reminder that patriotism and courage are not determined by race or ethnicity, but by character and commitment to shared values. They proved that America's strength comes from embracing its diversity, not fearing it. The legacy of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team continues to inspire military units and civil rights advocates around the world. Their story demonstrates that even in the face of overwhelming prejudice and seemingly impossible odds, determination and excellence can triumph. They proved that the content of one's character matters more than the color of one's skin or the origin of one's ancestors. Their perfect combat record stands as a testament to what can be achieved when people are given the opportunity to prove their worth through their actions rather than being judged by their appearance or background. The men of the 402nd didn't just fight for military victory. They fought for the principle that all Americans deserve equal treatment and equal opportunity to serve their country. Their sacrifices helped expand the definition of what it means to be an American hero, proving that heroism comes in many forms and from many backgrounds. Today, as we continue to grapple with issues of diversity, inclusion, and equal opportunity, the story of the 402nd remains as relevant as ever, reminding us that our greatest strength as a society comes from embracing and celebrating our differences rather than fearing them. Their legacy serves as a beacon of hope and inspiration for anyone who has ever faced discrimination or been told they don't belong. They proved that with courage, determination, and unwavering commitment to excellence, any barrier can be overcome. If this incredible story of the unit that never lost a battle has inspired you as much as it has inspired us, make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Which aspect of the 402nd story impressed you most? Their perfect combat record, their sacrifice for a country that had imprisoned their families, or their lasting impact on civil rights? We'd love to hear your perspective on these forgotten heroes and their extraordinary legacy. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories from World War II and military history that you probably never learned in school. Ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode, because we're constantly uncovering the incredible tales of courage, sacrifice, and heroism that shaped our world. There are so many more forgotten heroes whose stories deserve to be told, and we're committed to bringing their remarkable achievements to light.